Hyun-woo sat in the great council hall, his hands folded neatly in his lap. Around him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy argued about trade routes and mining rights. The Vorth representative, a massive creature with 4 arms and skin like stone, slammed his fist on the table. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. "The humans always speak of peace," the Vorth growled, his red eyes glowing with anger. "But peace does not fill empty bellies or protect weak colonies." Hyun-woo smiled gently. It was the same soft smile he always wore during these meetings. The smile that made the other species think humans were harmless, weak, safe. "Violence only creates more violence," Hyun-woo said in his calm voice. "Perhaps we can find a solution that helps everyone." The Kalari delegate, a tall blue-skinned being with too many fingers, made a sound like laughter. "The humans always say this, always peace, always talking. Your species has no backbone." Other delegates nodded. They had heard this before. Humans never fought. Humans never got angry. Humans always tried to make everyone happy. It was why they made good diplomats. They were too weak to be a threat to anyone. Hyun-woo felt a small pulse behind his left ear. The feeling was so brief, he almost missed it. His neural implant was working perfectly, keeping him calm and peaceful, just like every other human in the galaxy. On the other side of the station, Dr. So-min worked in her laboratory. She studied alien blood samples under her microscope, taking careful notes. Her research partner, Kel-Tar, from the Nexari species, floated nearby. The Nexari looked like jellyfish with glowing tentacles, and they could read surface thoughts. "Your mind is always so quiet," Kel-Tar said, his voice like wind chimes. "Most humans think in such simple patterns, very peaceful, very limited." So-min nodded and made another note. She was cataloging how quickly different alien blood types clotted, how much pressure it took to stop their hearts, which chemicals could paralyze their nervous systems. All for medical research, of course. That was what she told everyone. "We are a simple people," So-min replied. "We do not think about complicated things like war or conquest." Kel-Tar's tentacles glowed with amusement. "No, you do not. Sometimes I wonder how your species survived long enough to reach the stars." In the archives 3 levels down, Tae-jin sorted through old battle records. His job was to organize historical data about conflicts between alien species. Most of the records were boring. Species A attacked Species B over Resource X. Species C invaded Species D for Territory Y. The same patterns repeated over and over, but there were strange gaps in the data. Wars that ended suddenly for no clear reason. Aggressive species that became peaceful overnight. Military commanders who simply disappeared from all records. Tae-jin's fingers moved quickly over his keyboard. He cross-referenced dates and locations. A pattern was starting to emerge, but every time he got close to understanding it, his head would start to hurt. The pain always came from behind his left ear, right where his neural implant sat. The Vorth had ruled half the galaxy through violence. They were born warriors, with bones like metal and strength that could crush stone. They respected only power and feared nothing. But according to the records, they had stopped their expansion exactly 200 years ago. The same year humans had joined the Galactic Council. The Kalari had been master strategists, always planning 3 wars ahead. Their technology could break planets and remake star systems, but they too had become peaceful, more interested in science than conquest. Also, exactly 200 years ago, even the ancient Nexari, with their mind-reading abilities and 1,000-year lifespans, had changed. They used to be the galaxy's puppet masters, controlling other species through mental manipulation. Now they were philosophers and teachers. Tae-jin rubbed his temple. The headache was getting worse. He saved his work and closed the files. Maybe he was thinking too hard. Humans were not meant for complex thoughts about war and strategy. Everyone knew that. Across the station, Captain Min-ho walked through the docking bay. His ship, the Peaceful Dawn, was a standard diplomatic vessel. White hull, minimal weapons, maximum comfort for passengers. It looked harmless because it was supposed to look harmless. His crew was loading supplies. Hae-won, his security chief, carried heavy boxes like they weighed nothing. She was small for a human, barely reaching Min-ho's shoulder. But she never seemed to get tired. Sung-min, the communications officer, checked their equipment with the patience of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. Yu-Jin, the pilot, ran diagnostics on systems that most humans did not understand. "Captain," Yu-Jin called out, "I'm getting some strange readings from the navigation computer. It keeps trying to access star charts for regions we've never been to." Minho frowned. "What kind of regions?" "Dead systems, mostly. Places where wars happened long ago. The computer seems to know battle formations and attack patterns for species we've never fought." Sungmin looked up from her equipment. "My communications array is doing something similar. It has encryption codes for military frequencies that should not exist in our database." Hei-Wan set down her box and walked over. "Maybe it's just old data from when the ship was built. Sometimes manufacturers use recycled computer systems." Minho nodded, but he felt uneasy. Behind his left ear, his neural implant pulsed once. The feeling of unease faded quickly. These were just technical problems, nothing to worry about. In the council chamber, the meeting was ending. The fourth delegate had calmed down after Hyunwoo suggested a compromise about mining rights. The Kalari seemed satisfied with the new trade agreements. The Nexari delegate had barely spoken, just floating silently and reading everyone's thoughts. "Humans are useful," the Vorth admitted as they gathered their things. "Weak, but useful. You help us solve problems without bloodshed. Your species has found a good place in the galaxy," the Kalari agreed. "Safe and comfortable. No one sees you as a threat." Hyunwoo smiled his gentle smile. "We are happy to help. Peace benefits everyone." As the aliens left, Hyunwoo remained in his chair. The chamber was empty now except for him. He stared at the ceiling and thought about the meeting. The Vorth delegate had mentioned weak colonies being attacked by raiders. The Kalari had talked about mysterious ship disappearances near the outer rim. For just a moment, Hyunwoo found himself thinking about tactical solutions. How to track the raiders, how to set up ambush points, how to eliminate threats before they could strike again. His mind seemed to know things about warfare that he had never learned. Then his neural implant pulsed and the thoughts faded away. He was just a peaceful diplomat. These violent ideas were not his. They could not be his. Humans did not think about such things. Hyunwoo stood up and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the empty council chamber seemed to echo with whispers of forgotten wars and hidden truths. But he did not hear them. The implant made sure of that. In her laboratory, So-Min finished her work for the day. She locked away her research files and cleaned her equipment. Her notes contained detailed information about alien weaknesses, but she told herself it was all for medical purposes. Healing, not harming. Taejin closed the archives and went home to his small apartment. He did not think about the strange patterns in the historical data. The headaches had made sure of that. Captain Minho and his crew finished loading their ship. They would leave tomorrow for another diplomatic mission, another peaceful journey to help maintain galactic harmony. None of them questioned why their minds sometimes contained knowledge they should not have. None of them wondered why their bodies could do things that normal humans could not do. None of them asked why every human in the galaxy carried the same small device behind their left ear. The neural implants made sure they never asked those questions, and in the darkness between stars, something ancient was beginning to stir. Something that had been hunting across galaxies for millions of years. Something that had found this galaxy before, long ago, and would soon remember the taste of its civilizations. When that day came, the galaxy would learn why humanity had been hiding, why they had chosen to forget what they really were, and why sometimes the most dangerous predators were the ones that looked like harmless prey. Ji-Hoon knelt in the dust of a dead world, carefully brushing dirt from carved stone. The planet had no name in the modern star charts. It was just another lifeless rock orbiting a dying star. But the ruins told a different story. This civilization was very advanced, said Vextar, his alien partner. The Kalari archaeologist had 6 arms and bright blue skin that changed color with his emotions. Right now, it was a pale yellow that meant curiosity. Look at these weapon marks on the walls. Plasma burns, molecular disintegration, even temporal, displacement scarring. Ji-Hoon nodded, but his attention was focused on something else. Carved into the stone floor was a series of images. They showed the story of this dead civilization. In the first image, tall, graceful beings lived in beautiful cities among the stars. In the second image, they built massive war machines and conquered other worlds. In the third image, something came from the darkness between galaxies. The fourth image was the most disturbing. It showed the graceful beings lying dead while small figures stood over them. The figures were barely detailed, but they looked almost human. 2 arms, 2 legs, the right size and shape, but their eyes were wrong, cold, and empty. "What do you think these creatures are?" Vextar asked, pointing at the small figures. "They appear in every battle scene, but they are so primitive-looking. How could such weak beings defeat the Zenth Empire?" Ji-hoon stared at the carved figures. Something about them made his head hurt, right behind his left ear where his neural implant sat. "Maybe they were not as weak as they looked," he said quietly. "Impossible." Vextar's skin turned orange with amusement. "Look at them. No natural weapons, no armor, no size advantage. The Zenth were 3 meters tall with exoskeletons that could stop plasma fire. These little creatures could not have harmed them." But Ji-hoon kept staring at the images. In one, carving, the small figures moved in perfect formation, like a single mind controlling many bodies. In another, they seemed to appear from nowhere, as if they could hide in plain sight. In the final image, they stood among mountains of alien corpses, and their carved eyes seemed to stare directly at anyone who looked at them. His implant pulsed again, stronger this time. The pain made him dizzy. "Are you well?" Vexatar asked. "You humans are so fragile. Perhaps you should rest." "I am fine," Ji-hoon lied. But he was not fine. The images were triggering something in his mind. Memories that could not be his own. Knowledge of weapons and tactics, and the best ways to kill. Different alien species. He knew how to break a Kalari's extra joints. He knew which pressure points would paralyze a Vorth warrior. He knew these things, but he did not know how he knew them. Across the galaxy, Eun-jung sat in the military intelligence archives of the Galactic Council. Her job was to analyze patterns in interspecies conflicts, looking for ways to prevent future wars. It was peaceful work, perfect for a gentle human mind. But today she was looking at something that did not make sense. Every major galactic war in recorded history had ended the same way. Not with treaties or surrender, but with the complete disappearance of the aggressor species. The Ravager clans had swept across 12 star systems, enslaving entire populations. They were unstoppable until they simply vanished. No distress signals, no final battles, no escape pods. Their entire fleet just disappeared in the space of a single day. The Hive Lords had consumed 3 civilizations, turning entire planets into breeding grounds for their insect armies. They seemed ready to devour the galaxy. Then, overnight, every hive went silent. When exploration teams finally reached their worlds, they found nothing but empty tunnels and scattered chitin shells. The Void Cult had weaponized dark matter itself, turning stars into bombs. Their technology was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They declared war on all organic life. 2 weeks later, their dimension ships were found drifting empty in space, with no sign of what had happened to their crews. In every case, the timeline was the same. A species would become too aggressive, too dangerous to galactic peace. They would seem unstoppable. Then something would intervene, and the threat would end completely. Eun-jung cross-referenced the dates with other historical events. Every major threat had ended roughly 200 years ago. Right around the time humans had first joined the galactic community, her neural implant pulsed. The coincidence seemed less important now, probably just a statistical anomaly. These things happened sometimes, but deep in her mind, locked behind layers of electronic suppression, other thoughts stirred. Thoughts about target acquisition and threat neutralization. Thoughts about hunt patterns and kill zones. Thoughts that belonged to something that was definitely not a peaceful human diplomat. On the Nexari homeworld, Elder Morden floated in, his meditation chamber. He was ancient even by Nexari standards, his translucent body filled with memories spanning thousands of years. When Ji-hoon's archaeological team had requested an interview about galactic history, he had agreed out of curiosity. Humans asked such simple questions. Tell me about the Great Silence, Ji-hoon said, sitting cross-legged on the chamber floor. His recording device hummed quietly between them. Mordun's tentacles pulsed with deep blue light. It is an old story, perhaps older than truth itself. In the time before time, when the galaxy was young and violent, there was a period when all the warrior races went quiet. What caused it? No one knows. My ancestors spoke of shadows that walked between stars, hunters who came when the killing became too much. They called them the final piece. Ji-hoon felt his implant pulse again. What did these hunters look like? The stories are unclear. Some say they were shapeshifters who could become any form. Others claim they were spirits of the dead seeking vengeance, but the oldest tales describe them as small beings who looked harmless until they chose not to be. The recording device captured every word, but Ji-hoon barely heard them. Images flashed through his mind. Dark ships moving silently through space. Boarding actions so swift that security cameras could not track them. Species that had ruled through terror learning what real fear felt like. Elder, Ji-hoon said carefully, do you think these hunters still exist? Mordun's tentacles went completely dark for a moment. When the light returned, it was dim and uncertain. I hope not, young human. I truly hope not. Because if they do still exist, it means something terrible is coming. Something bad enough to wake them from their long sleep. After the interview, Ji-hoon walked through the crystal gardens of the Nexari capital. The elder's words echoed in, his mind mixing with the strange knowledge that seemed to lurk just beyond his conscious thoughts. He passed a group of Nexari younglings playing in a fountain. Their thoughts were bright and happy, full of games and innocent dreams. For a moment, Ji-hoon found himself calculating how quickly he could eliminate all of them. Silent approaches, pressure points, optimal body disposal methods. The thoughts terrified him. His implant pulsed hard, and the violent fantasies faded. But they left behind a cold certainty that he could have done it. That some part of him knew exactly how to kill every species in the galaxy. Back on the archaeological site, Vextar made a discovery in the deepest part of the ruins, a sealed chamber that had somehow survived the destruction of the planet. Inside, they found a single wall covered in warning symbols from dozens of different civilizations. Amazing, Vextar breathed, his skin cycling through colors of excitement. This is a universal warning. Every major species in galactic history contributed to this message. Ji-hoon studied the symbols. He could read languages he had never learned. Ancient Vorth battle script, extinct Kalari war codes, Nexari memory glyphs that should have been impossible for a human mind to understand. The message was simple. They walk among us. They watch and wait. When the killing becomes too much, they remember what they are. Pray that they never remember. Pray that you never give them reason to remember. At the bottom of the wall, carved in fresh stone that should not have existed on this ancient world, was a single line in perfect modern galactic standard. The sleepers dream of war, but the watchers are always awake. Ji-hoon's implant pulsed, so hard he stumbled. Pain shot through his skull like lightning. For just a moment, the suppression failed, and he remembered. He remembered ships that moved like predators through space. He remembered boarding actions against impossible odds. He remembered the faces of enemies who had thought humans were weak, right up until the moment they learned better. He remembered why humanity had begged the galaxy to help them forget. Ji-hoon! Vextar caught him as he fell. What is wrong? Should I call for medical assistance? I am fine, Ji-hoon gasped as his implant reasserted control. The memories faded back into darkness. Just tired. We should head back to the ship. But, as they packed their equipment, Ji-hoon could not shake the feeling that something was watching them from the ruins, something that had been waiting a very long time for someone to read its warning. Above them, in the cold space between stars, sensors that should not have existed detected their presence. Ancient systems awakened and began transmitting coded signals across the galaxy. The archaeological discovery was being reported to watchers who had been waiting for exactly this moment. The warning had been read. The sleepers were stirring, and, somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, something that had been traveling between The first reports came from the Outer Rim colonies, sensor stations going dark without warning, trade ships disappearing between jump points, entire mining operations found empty, their equipment still running but no trace of the workers. At first, the Galactic Council thought it was raiders or equipment failures. The Outer Rim was always dangerous. Pirates and mechanical breakdowns were common problems. But then the Kalari Deep Space Monitoring Station at Zerion Prime detected something that changed everything. "The readings do not make sense, Commander," Zalketh reported during the emergency council session. His blue skin was pure white with fear. "The objects are massive, larger than any ships we have ever built. And they are moving faster than our best theoretical models say is possible." Hyun-woo sat in his usual seat, hands folded calmly in his lap. Around him, the alien delegates argued and shouted. The Vorth were demanding immediate military action. The Nexari were trying to make psychic contact with whatever was coming. The Kalari were running calculations that none of them liked. "How many ships?" asked General Korthval, the Vorth military commander. His stone-like skin was cracked with stress marks. "What are their weapons capabilities?" "We do not know," Zalketh admitted. "Our scanners cannot penetrate their hulls. But preliminary estimates suggest we are looking at a fleet numbering in the hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions." The council chamber fell silent. Even the Vorth, who lived for battle, seemed shaken by those numbers. "What do they want?" Hyun-woo asked in his gentle voice. "Have they tried to communicate?" "They have sent one message," Zalketh replied. He activated a holographic display. Strange symbols appeared in the air, pulsing with malevolent energy. "Our computers cannot translate it, but our xenolinguist team believes it roughly means, 'The harvest begins.'" Hyun-woo stared at the symbols. Deep in his mind, something stirred. He knew these marks. He had seen them before, carved into the ruins of dead worlds. His neural implant pulsed, pushing the memory away, but not before he caught a glimpse of burning cities and screaming voices. 3 days later, the first real attack came. The colony world of Haven's Rest had 2 million inhabitants and a strong planetary defense grid. It should have been able to hold off any reasonable assault. The defenders had modern weapons, trained soldiers, and early warning systems. The attack lasted 14 minutes. Captain Min-ho received the distress call while his diplomatic ship was in hyperspace between systems. Yu-jin, his pilot, immediately changed course toward Haven's Rest. It was what any peaceful ship would do, try to help with evacuations or medical aid. "Sir," Sung-min called from her communications station, "I'm picking up strange transmissions from the Haven system. It sounds like screaming. Put it on speaker," Min-ho ordered. The bridge filled with sounds that none of them should have been able to understand. Alien voices speaking in terror. Weapons fire that went on for a few minutes and then stopped abruptly. And underneath it, a sound like millions of insects chittering in harmony. "Sweet stars," Haewon whispered. "What is that?" Min-ho felt his neural implant pulse as strange knowledge surfaced in his mind. He knew that sound. It was the feeding call of a hive mind, a species that consumed entire civilizations and added their biological matter to its own mass. "Change course," he said suddenly. "Set us down on the observation station at Kepler 7. We need to report this to Earth Command." His crew stared at him. "Earth Command?" Yu-jin asked. "Sir, shouldn't we report to the Galactic Council?" Min-ho blinked. Where had that order come from? Earth Command was supposed to handle shipping routes and civilian logistics. Why would he think to contact them about a military emergency? "You are right," he said quickly. "Contact the Council. But first, set us down at Kepler 7. I want to review the sensor data before we make our report." Haewon frowned. "Sir, we don't have any sensor data. We weren't close enough to record anything." But even as she said it, Haewon was looking at her security console with confusion. Somehow, her instruments had detailed scans of the Haven system, information about ship movements, weapon signatures, and energy patterns that their simple diplomatic vessel should not have been able to detect. "How did we get this data?" she asked. Min-ho stared at the readings. His mind automatically began analyzing the attack patterns, looking for weaknesses in the enemy formation. Part of him knew exactly what these creatures were and how to fight them, But that was impossible. He was just a peaceful diplomat. System malfunction, he said finally. We will have the computers checked at Kepler-7. But his neural implant was pulsing continuously now, struggling to suppress knowledge that was fighting to surface. Knowledge of ships and weapons and battle tactics that he should not possess. The reports kept coming. Colony after colony going silent. Defense fleets disappearing without managing to send detailed intelligence about their attackers. The few survivors who escaped spoke of ships like living creatures and soldiers that moved like a single organism. Dr. So-Min worked frantically in her laboratory, analyzing tissue samples from the few victims who had been recovered. What she found made no sense according to everything she knew about biology. The cellular structure has been completely rewritten, she explained to Keltar, her Nexari research partner. It is as if these creatures can absorb other life forms and integrate their DNA into their own matrix. Fascinating, Keltar said, his tentacles glowing with scientific curiosity. A truly adaptive species. They must be incredibly efficient predators. So-Min nodded, but she was thinking about something else. The tissue samples triggered memories she should not have, images of similar creatures from long ago, and more importantly, detailed knowledge of their weaknesses. She knew that these beings could not adapt to certain quantum frequencies. She knew that their hive mind could be disrupted by specific electromagnetic pulses. She knew the exact chemical compounds that would cause their cellular matrix to break down. But how could she know these things? Her neural implant pulsed, and the certainty faded. She was just a peaceful researcher. These violent thoughts were not hers. In the archives, Tai Jin worked day and night, searching through historical records for any mention of creatures like the ones attacking the Outer Rim. The more he learned, the more frightened he became. He found references in the oldest databases, species called devourers or harvesters, or simply the hunger. They appeared in the legends of every major civilization, always described the same way. They came from the dark spaces between galaxies. They consumed everything in their path, and they had been doing it for millions of years. But there were other references, too. Stories of times when the devourers had been stopped, not defeated, never defeated, but driven back into the darkness. The stories were vague and contradictory, but they all mentioned the same thing. When the galaxy faced extinction, something would arise to meet the threat. Something that the surviving records called the final answer. Tai Jin's head pounded as he read the files. His neural implant was working overtime, trying to suppress the connections his mind was making. But some thoughts were too strong to completely block. He was beginning to understand that humans were not what they seemed, that their peaceful nature was not natural, but imposed, and that somewhere in their forgotten past, they had encountered these devourers before. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session as more worlds fell. The Vorth had lost their primary military base. The Kalari's most advanced research stations had gone silent. Even the Nexari were admitting that their psychic abilities could not penetrate whatever collective mind controlled the invaders. We need to evacuate the core worlds, General Korthval announced. His usually aggressive demeanor had been replaced by something approaching desperation. Pull back to defended positions and make them pay for every system. Running will not save us, Elder Morden said, his tentacles dim with sorrow. These creatures do not tire. They do not negotiate. They consume everything until there is nothing left to consume. Hyunwoo listened to the debate with growing unease. His neural implant was struggling more and more to maintain his peaceful facade. Dark thoughts kept surfacing, military strategies, tactical assessments, kill counts, and casualty ratios. Perhaps, he said quietly, it is time to consider more extreme measures. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the human ambassador. It was unlike him to suggest anything aggressive. What do you mean? Asked Zalketh. Hyunwoo hesitated. For a moment his implant faltered, and something else spoke through him. I mean that sometimes the only way to ensure peace is to be willing to make war. Sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become something terrible. The words hung in the air like a threat. The alien delegates looked at each other with confusion. This did not sound like the gentle human they knew. "Hyun-woo," Morden said carefully. "Are you feeling well? Your thoughts seem different." Hyun-woo blinked. His implant pulsed hard, and his gentle smile returned. "Forgive me. The situation is affecting my judgment. Of course, we should focus on evacuation and diplomatic solutions." But as the meeting continued, other humans throughout the galaxy were experiencing similar moments. Brief failures of their neural implants, glimpses of knowledge and instincts that had been locked away for 2 centuries. Captain Minho found him. The Devourer main fleet arrived like a living nightmare made of metal and flesh. Ships the size of moons moved through space with the fluid grace of sea creatures. Their hulls pulsed with organic rhythms, and strange lights flickered beneath, their surfaces like the thoughts of a vast, hungry mind. Admiral Jae-sung watched the sensor readings from his hidden command center deep beneath Earth's crust. The facility officially did not exist. According to public records, this was just another geological research station. But the walls were lined with weapons that could crack planets, and the computers contained tactical data on every known species in the galaxy. "Sir," reported Commander In-ho from the sensor station, "the Devourers have reached the Centauri cluster. They are moving faster now. 17 systems have gone dark in the past 6 hours. Jae-sung nodded grimly. Around him, hundreds of technicians monitored displays showing human bio-readings from across the galaxy. The neural implants were failing, not all at once, but in a steady cascade that was accelerating with each passing hour. "What is the status of the limiters?" he asked. "Critical overload in 67% of the human population," reported Dr. Ha Jin from the medical station. "The implants were never designed to handle this level of psychological stress. Watching the galaxy die is triggering responses we spent 2 centuries trying to suppress." On the main display, red warning lights showed human settlements throughout known space. Each light represented thousands of people whose peaceful facades were beginning to crack, whose buried instincts were fighting to surface. "Sir," In-ho said quietly, "we are receiving reports of incidents. Humans acting differently." Jae-sung pulled up the incident reports. A human merchant on Trader's Point had killed 3 Kalari, pirates with his bare hands, then seemed confused about how he had done it. A human teacher on New Geneva had disarmed a Vorth security guard so quickly that the surveillance cameras had missed most of the action. A human diplomat on Harmony Station had somehow hacked into military-grade computer systems using knowledge she should not have possessed. Each incident was followed by the same pattern. The human would be confused and disoriented. Their neural implant would pulse and stabilize. They would return to their normal, peaceful behavior. But the damage was done. Other species were beginning to notice. "How long before complete cascade failure?" Jae-sung asked. Dr. Ha Jin checked her calculations. "At current rates, 72 hours. Maybe less if the psychological stress continues to increase." Jae-sung stared at the tactical display. 72 hours before humanity remembered what they really were. 72 hours before the galaxy discovered the truth about their peaceful, human neighbors. On the diplomatic vessel Peaceful Dawn, Captain Minho was experiencing his own crisis. His ship's computer systems had somehow reconfigured themselves overnight. What should have been a simple navigation array now displayed tactical information that made his head spin. "Captain," Yujin called from the pilot station, "I am reading weapon signatures on our hull. But we do not have any weapons." "That is impossible," Minho replied. But even as he said it, he was looking at schematics that showed exactly where the weapons were hidden. Plasma cannons built into what looked like communication arrays, missile launchers disguised as cargo containers, shield generators that could withstand attacks from capital ships. Hei-wan studied her security console with growing alarm. "Sir, our defensive systems are showing combat-ready status, but I do not remember activating them." Sungmin looked up from her communication station. "I am intercepting military transmissions on frequencies that are supposed to be classified, and somehow I understand the encryption codes." Minho felt his neural implant pulse frantically as buried memories fought to surface. Images of this same ship performing maneuvers that no diplomatic vessel should be capable of. Memories of battles in the darkness between stars. Memories of enemies who had learned too late that the small, weak humans were neither small nor weak. System. Malfunction, he said through gritted teeth. We need to— He never finished the sentence. A proximity alarm screamed through the ship as something massive dropped out of hyperspace directly ahead of them. A Devourer scout ship, easily 10 times their size, with hull patterns that seemed to shift and writhe like living tissue. For a moment, everyone on the bridge froze. Then Yujin's hands moved over her controls with impossible speed and precision, throwing their ship into evasive maneuvers that should have torn apart a civilian vessel. Where did you learn to fly like that? Minho demanded. I do not know, Yujin replied, her voice strained with concentration. But I know exactly what that thing is and how to fight it. The Devourer ship fired. Streams of energy that could vaporize asteroids lanced through the space where they had been moments before. But Yujin was already moving, her hands dancing, over controls as if she had been trained for this her entire life. Heiwan's fingers found weapon controls that should not have existed. Permission to return fire? We do not have weapons, Minho said automatically. But even as he spoke, hidden panels opened on their hull. Gun ports that had been camouflaged as maintenance hatches revealed plasma cannons. Missile tubes that had been disguised as sensor arrays locked onto the enemy ship. Permission to fire? Heiwan repeated. Minho's neural implant was sparking now, literally overheating as it tried to suppress instincts that were too strong to contain. Behind his eyes, tactical displays overlaid his vision. He could see the enemy ship's weak points. He knew exactly where to hit it to cause maximum damage. Fire, he whispered. Their weapons unleashed hell. Plasma bolts that could penetrate battleship armor struck the Devourer vessel with surgical precision. Missiles designed to crack open space stations found their mark and detonated in brilliant flashes of destruction. The Devourer ship died in 9 seconds. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of cooling weapons. Minho and his crew stared at each other in shock. They had just destroyed a ship that should have been far beyond their ability to fight. How did we do that? Sungmin asked in a small voice. Minho's implant pulsed one final time, then went dark. Without its suppression, memories flooded back. This ship was not a diplomatic vessel. It was a hunter-killer disguised as a civilian craft. His crew were not peaceful civilians. They were soldiers, veterans of wars that the galaxy had forgotten, and they were just one of thousands of such ships hidden throughout human space. Dr. Somin's laboratory had become a weapons development facility. Without consciously deciding to do it, she had begun synthesizing biological agents specifically designed to target Devourer physiology. Her research partner, Keltar, watched in growing confusion as the gentle human scientist transformed into something else. Somin, Keltar said, his tentacles dim with worry. These compounds you are creating, they are not medical treatments. No, Somin replied without looking up from her work. They are weapons, biological weapons designed to cause rapid cellular breakdown in hive mind species. But how do you know how to make such things? Humans are peaceful. You do not study warfare. Somin finally looked at him, and Keltar recoiled. Her eyes were cold and calculating. The gentle scientist was gone, replaced by someone who looked at alien physiology and saw only targets and vulnerabilities. We are not peaceful, she said, quietly. We never were. We just pretended to be. In the archives, Taejin had stopped pretending to research historical conflicts. Instead, he was accessing military databases that should have been impossible for a civilian to reach. His fingers moved over the keyboard with the confidence of someone who had used these systems many times before. The data he was reviewing was not historical. It was current battle plans, deployment schedules for fleets that officially did not exist, tactical assessments of every major species in the galaxy, and at the center of it all, detailed intelligence on the Devourers that went back millions of years. His neural implant had failed completely an hour ago. Now he remembered everything. The Long War, the exodus from Andromeda, the desperate flight to this galaxy, and the decision to hide among the very species they had come to protect. He opened a communications channel and began transmitting activation codes to human sleeper cells throughout the galaxy. It was time to wake up. Across known space, the cascade was accelerating. Humans were remembering who they really were. The peaceful facade was cracking like ice in spring. On research stations and trading posts, in diplomatic missions and civilian settlements, humans were accessing hidden weapons and revealing knowledge they should not have possessed. Their neural implants sparked and failed as 2 centuries of suppressed memories fought their way to the surface. The other species watched in growing horror as their harmless human neighbors transformed before their eyes. The gentle diplomats became cold tacticians. The peaceful scientists began speaking in terms of biological warfare. The weak civilians demonstrated combat skills that made veteran soldiers step back in fear. At the Galactic Council, Yunwu felt his own implant die with a sound like breaking glass. The gentle smile fell from his face, replaced by an expression that made the alien delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Council members," he said, and his voice carried an authority that had not been there before. "I need to tell you something about humanity. Something we have." The council capital world of Harmony Prime was burning. Hyunwoo stood in the great plaza outside the government complex, watching Devourer drop ships descend through the atmosphere like falling stars. Around him, alien civilians screamed and ran for shelter that would not save them. The invaders had come in overwhelming numbers, and the planetary defenses had fallen in minutes. A group of Kalari children huddled behind an overturned vehicle, their blue skin pale with terror. Their teacher, an elderly Nexari named Veloth, tried to shield them with her body as Devourer ground troops advanced across the plaza. The creatures moved like a single organism, their chitinous armor gleaming in the firelight. Hyunwoo watched. The scene with the detached calm of someone whose neural implant was still functioning. The device behind his ear pulsed steadily, keeping his emotions suppressed and his violent instincts locked away. He was just a peaceful diplomat. This was not his fight. Then one of the Devourer's soldiers raised its weapon toward the children. Something deep inside Hyunwoo's mind screamed in rage. The sound was so loud it seemed to echo through his skull. His neural implant pulsed frantically, trying to contain the explosion of fury that threatened to consume him. But this time, the implant was not strong enough. The device behind his ear sparked once, twice, then died with a sound like breaking crystal. The suppression fields that had kept him calm and peaceful for 2 centuries simply ceased to exist. Hyunwoo's transformation was immediate and terrifying. His posture changed first. The gentle, submissive stance of a diplomat vanished, replaced by the predatory crouch of something that had been born to hunt. His eyes went cold and calculating, scanning the battlefield with tactical precision that made hardened soldiers look like children playing war games. "Get down," he said to Veloth, and his voice carried an authority that made the Nexari teacher obey without question. The Devourer soldier was still aiming at the children when Hyunwoo moved. He crossed 30 meters of open ground in seconds, moving with a speed and grace that should have been impossible for a human. The alien creature had time to register his approach but not to react. Hyunwoo's hands found pressure points on the Devourer's neck that he should not have known existed. The creature's exoskeleton cracked under his grip, and it collapsed without even managing to scream, but Hyunwoo was not finished. More Devourer soldiers were converging on his position, their hive mind directing them to eliminate this unexpected threat. They moved in perfect formation, supporting each other with coordinated fire. They might as well have been moving in slow motion. Hyunwoo flowed between their weapons like water, his body seeming to know exactly where each shot would be before it was fired. He moved with the efficiency of someone who had fought this exact enemy countless times before. His hands became weapons that could shatter alien armor. His feet found weak joints that most species did not even know they had. In less than a minute, 12 Devourer soldiers lay dead around him. Veloth and the children stared at him in shock. This was not the gentle human ambassador they knew. This was something else. Something that looked human, but moved like death itself. "Ambassador Hyunwoo?" Veloth whispered. What are you?" Hyunwoo turned to look at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her tentacles curl with instinctive fear. It was the look of a predator that had been pretending to be prey for far too long. "I am what my species really is," he said quietly, "and I am very, very tired of pretending to be anything else." He activated a communication device that had been hidden in his diplomatic badge. "This is Agent 779 to Earth Command. My limiter has failed. Requesting immediate activation of all sleeper protocols." The response came immediately. "Confirmed, 779. Welcome back to the war." Across the galaxy, the cascade failure accelerated. Neural implants that had suppressed humanity's true nature for 2 centuries began shutting down in waves. Each failure sent ripples through the quantum communication network that connected every human in known space. On the trading station Crossroads, a human merchant named Wan Shik was helping evacuate alien civilians when his implant died. The gentle trader vanished, replaced by someone who moved like a special forces operative. He began issuing orders in tactical terminology that made the station's security chief, a veteran Vorth warrior, snap to attention without thinking. "Civilian evacuation through sectors 7 through 12, Wan Shik commanded. "Combat teams to defensive positions Alpha through Gamma. Seal the airlocks and prepare for boarding actions." "Sir," the Vorth security chief said automatically, then paused in confusion. "I mean, you are just a merchant. How do you know military protocols?" Wan Shik smiled, and the expression was nothing like the friendly grin the aliens remembered. "I am not just a merchant. I have never been just a merchant." He walked to a maintenance panel and entered a code that should not have existed. Adin. Compartments opened throughout the trading station, revealing weapons and equipment that had been concealed for decades. The civilian station transformed into a fortress in minutes. On the research ship Gentle Inquiry, Dr. So-Min felt her own implant fail as she watched devourer ships approaching through the viewport. The change in her was immediate and shocking. The peaceful scientist began speaking in rapid technical terms about biological warfare and optimal kill ratios. Her alien colleagues backed away as she accessed computer systems with clearance codes she should not have possessed. Weapon schematics appeared on her screens, not theoretical designs, but tested, proven instruments of destruction. "Dr. So-Min," her Kalari assistant said in a shaking voice, "you are frightening me. What has happened? To you?" "Nothing has happened to me," So-Min replied without looking away from her work. "I am simply remembering what I always was. A biological warfare specialist, a xenocide expert, a weapon designed to eliminate threats to human survival." She began synthesizing compounds that could dissolve devourer armor in seconds. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, creating death in liquid form. Captain Minho's ship had become something entirely different. With his implant dead, he no longer pretended that the Peaceful Dawn was a diplomatic vessel. Hidden systems activated throughout the ship, revealing its true nature as a hunter-killer designed to track and destroy threats in deep space. "All crew to battle stations," he announced over the intercom. His voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded warships for decades. "This is not a drill. We are now operating under full combat protocols." Eugen's piloting skills revealed themselves to be far beyond anything a civilian should possess. She flew their ship through asteroid fields and debris clouds like it was an extension of her body. Sungmin's communications equipment accessed military networks that spanned the galaxy. Haywan's security systems transformed the ship into a mobile weapons platform. "Sir," Haywan reported, "I am reading 17 devourer ships in this system. Configuration suggests a harvesting fleet with escort vessels." "Analysis?" Minho asked. Haywan's eyes went cold as tactical programs activated in her mind. "Recommend hit-and-run attacks on the escort vessels. Target their communication arrays first to disrupt hive mind coordination. Follow with concentrated fire on their propulsion systems." "Agreed. Eugen, take us to attack position Alpha 7. "Yes, sir." As they moved to engage, Minho opened a secure channel to other human ships in the area. Ships that had been disguised as freighters and passenger vessels, but were now revealing their true nature as military assets. "All units, this is Hunter 7. The masquerade is over. We are weapons free. Repeat, we are weapons free." The response came from dozens of ships throughout the system. "Confirmed, Hunter 7. Good to be back in the war." In the archives of the Galactic Council, Tai Jin had become something that terrified the alien researchers who worked alongside him. His gentle curiosity had been replaced by the cold efficiency of a military intelligence analyst. He moved through classified databases like he owned them, accessing information that should have required security clearances he did not possess. Tae-jin, his supervisor, a nervous Kalari named Fex Tal, approached him carefully. "What are you doing?" "Those files are restricted." "Not to me," Tae-jin replied without looking up from his screens. "I have been accessing these systems for over a century. I helped design half of the security protocols you think are protecting them." The truth was flooding back now. He was not a researcher. He was a deep-cover intelligence operative whose job had been to monitor potential threats to humanity while maintaining the illusion of peaceful cooperation. His screens showed deployment patterns for human military assets throughout the galaxy, hidden bases that had been disguised as research stations, weapons stockpiles that had been camouflaged as mining operations, fleet movements that had been concealed as civilian traffic. "Alert all council forces," he said into his communicator. "The human military network is activating. What you thought were peaceful civilians are actually the largest covert military force in galactic history." But as he said it, Tae-jin smiled. Because he was not really warning the council. He was coordinating the awakening of humanity's true nature. Earth Command, the organization that other species thought managed human shipping routes, revealed itself to be what it had always been: the Central Command, Star. The truth came in waves, each revelation more shocking than the last. Admiral Jae Sung stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, no longer hiding behind the facade of a peaceful human administrator. His uniform bore the insignia of Earth Command, and his eyes held the weight of wars that had raged across 2 galaxies. "We need to start at the beginning," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in battles that most species could not imagine. 3 million years ago, in what you call the Andromeda Galaxy, there was a species called humanity. We were not peaceful. We were not gentle. We were apex predators that had evolved to hunt pack animals across ice worlds. The holographic display behind him showed images that made the assembled aliens recoil. Ancient humans stalking massive creatures through frozen landscapes, their eyes cold and calculating, their movements precise and deadly. When we reached the stars, we brought our hunting instincts with us. We were efficient. We were relentless. And when we encountered other species, we did what predators do. We dominated them. General Korth Val, the Vorth commander, leaned forward despite his fear. "But you are small, weak. How could you dominate species like mine?" Jae Sung smiled, and the expression made the massive Vorth warrior step back. "Because we learned to hunt as a pack." Every human was connected to every other human through quantum-entangled neural implants. We thought as one mind, moved as one body, and killed as one weapon. The display changed, showing human fleets moving through space with perfect coordination. Ships that seemed to know what their enemies would do before the enemies knew it themselves. We conquered the Andromeda Galaxy in less than 50,000 years, but conquest was not enough. We kept hunting because hunting was what we were, and eventually, we found the Devourers. Elder Morden's tentacles pulsed with ancient fear. The legends speak of them, the hunger that comes from the void between galaxies. "They were perfect prey," Jae Sung continued, "a hive mind that consumed entire civilizations, leaving nothing but empty worlds behind. They had devoured dozens of galaxies before they encountered us, but they had never met anything like humanity." The display showed battles that defied comprehension. Human ships swarming over devourer vessels like antibodies attacking a virus. Boarding actions where humans moved through alien corridors like living death. Worlds where human soldiers hunted devourer warriors through cities that burned for days. The war lasted 2 million years. We followed them from galaxy to galaxy, hunting them across the universe. Every time they tried to feed, we were there. Every time they tried to hide, we found them. We became so efficient at killing them that we started to evolve specifically for that purpose. Dr. Somin stepped forward from where she had been standing, with the other humans. Her gentle appearance was gone, replaced by something that made the alien delegates nervous. "Our bodies adapted," she said in her new, clinical voice. "Faster reflexes, enhanced pattern recognition, improved tactical thinking. Our brain chemistry changed to